Before we begin, I'd like to hand it off to my colleague, Henry Morgan, who will share a little bit more about what today's presentation.
Hey everyone, thanks so much, James. I just want to go over a few housekeeping things on the agenda before we get started. Just so everyone knows, we have ASL and closed captioning available. We have 2 interpreters today, Gloria and Lisa. They'll be spotlighting themselves in periods of 15 minutes to ensure that there's always high quality translation going on. So you can see them in your Zoom window. And additionally, we have closed captioning available. You can select that by pressing show captions on Zoom. If you have a smaller screen, it might be under the more section with 3 dots. So be sure to turn that on if you'd like. And if you have any questions about that, feel free to send me a direct message in the chat box. A few housekeeping rules. We'd really prefer if everyone can mute their microphones throughout the presentation unless we're asking people to share out. And we encourage people to turn on their cameras if they feel comfortable to ensure that everyone is having an engaging conversation. Second, we really hope that everyone can include both their name, their organization, and hopefully their title as well in their Zoom name, just because we'll have a few breakout sessions and we ask people to share out. So we want everyone to be able to be aware of where their fellow colleagues are coming from. As James mentioned, we would love it if everyone can leave their questions in the chat box, and then we'll get to them at the end of the session. We also encourage people to keep a pen and paper handy. We have a few tools and exercises that we'll be running through for which you will need that. And lastly, we are recording this session, so it will be made available afterwards to people who could not attend. To go over the agenda really quickly, we just ran through welcome and introductions. I'm going to give you a quick overview of NYC service and what we do in our office. Then we have 2 main sections of our presentation, Understand Your Community and Self-Assess and Make a Plan. Between those sections, my colleague Danny is going to hop in and give everyone a quick overview of NYC Service's new website and how you can use it to recruit and engage your volunteers. And then we'll wrap up with questions and answers at the end of the session.
And then we're going to actually, Henry, I will just jump in for a second. We'll show each of the slides of the presentation.
Yes, correct, as well. As my colleague Laura mentioned, the overall objective of this toolkit is really to give organizations the tools and resources that they need, that they can use to empower their communities through forging strategic partnerships and by engaging volunteers. This specific section really focuses on community engagement and how you can assess your community's needs and assets, as well as your own organization's strengths and opportunities. Then we'll also learn how to engage your community in this process by engaging key stakeholders within the community as well. So to give a little bit more background on NYC Service, we were founded in 2009 in response to President Obama's call to action amidst the economic downturn following the financial crisis. So we became the first city of service in the nation, and we have had many other cities throughout the country follow the model that we developed. Today, we run a lot of different multifaceted programs. We have several different AmeriCorps programs where we help place members in different city agencies and with different nonprofit organizations, all focused on helping develop different volunteer workforces. We also have a community engagement side of the office where we focus on CSR related initiatives, helping our corporate partners. We also run youth programs, mainly with youth leadership councils, with nonprofit and community-based organizations throughout the city, as well as city-based organizations. And then we lastly have a nonprofit and CBO facing side, which is what James and I primarily work on. So with that, I will pass it off to James to get our training started.
Great, and then we'll just jump to the slides for this discussion. We are still on the first slide.
And James, before you begin, I just wanted to say hello to everyone. Hi, everyone. My name is Tiffany Tucker Pryor. I am the new Deputy Chief Service Officer for Community Engagement. And I'm so excited to see all of you here on the call. James and Henry has worked diligently to ensure that you will receive as much resources as possible. So we are excited. We're happy to have you here today. And again, I just want to say welcome, welcome, welcome. Enjoy.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. I appreciate that. We're having a little technical difficulty. We're going to jump to the next slide. Sorry about that. But while Henry's working on that, we're going to jump into one of the key sessions, which is understanding your community. So as we think about
Can
understanding
you see
your,
now?
yes, we can see that now. Thank you so much. So understanding your community. So what we are looking at is sort of how organizations are sort of meeting those needs and challenges they're hearing about in their communities. But we also want organizations to think about what are their strengths, what are their assets, what is their value add to the community. So thinking about the tools that you have or need to assess those needs is extremely helpful, but also mapping out where those community needs are being met or needed. So each community is unique and has its own history, culture, dynamics, assets, and challenges. But understanding these factors to ensure your efforts to meet community needs are relevant and effective. So we're going to talk a little bit more about surface community needs and challenges. So to truly understand a neighborhood and its needs, there is no substitute for connecting with community members and listening to their experience and perspectives. These are members of the community that know on the ground the challenges, the needs of residents in those communities. So reflecting on local issues, current and past approaches to addressing them. Use surveys and listening sessions to address any gaps in knowledge. Your organization has that history and knowledge on how you're approaching the current issues, but issues evolve over time, monthly, yearly. We've seen that during the pandemic. So again, it's important to sort of think about what those current needs are and how your organization addresses them so that you can reshape sort of how you're engaging your community. So engaging. So it's really important, as many of you know, involving community members in the conversation at the very beginning. It's so critical to get buy-in when you're thinking about how to address these community needs. Instead of relying on general information, aim to get a neighborhood level understanding, which can clarify key issues and disparities and allow you to target your support. Engage all relevant community stakeholders. Seek out those who you may not typically hear from. These could be residents who do not have access or knowledge of community meetings, whether it's a community board meeting, a police precinct meeting, or street event. Treat the community as an equal partner in devising solutions and addressing neighborhood problems. And meet with these community members where they live and where they serve. So why is a need assessment so important? So community needs, as I mentioned, evolve continually. Changing demographics, emerging crisis, as we saw during the pandemic, and new community projects. An organization's ability to address the community issues changes over time. Regular assessments allow organizations to understand and steer resources to meet current challenges. Understand organizational blind spots. Where are those gaps? Where are you not meeting those residents? Who are the populations you are not currently serving? And help our organizations determine how best to address critical gaps that align with their mission. And knowing what is working and what is not getting sufficient attention is critical to an organization's success. So how do you get started? So an extensive should a needs assessment be? Well, consider the following. Your organization's depth of knowledge, your current network and relationships, what you already know based on experience and ongoing dialogue and input, the urgency of the moment, and whether there is time to pause. So reflecting on community needs. So I'd like all of you to sort of take 5 minutes to think about how your organization can more effectively surface community needs. Consider some of the following. What information would deepen your understanding of the community issues? How do you currently reach members of the community? Whose perspectives are missing from the organizational data? And how might we reach those community members? So take a few minutes, use your pen and paper, jot down some notes, and I'll ask some organizations to share out. And if you're not comfortable sharing out, please use the chat box to sort of share with the group how you're deepening your relationships and understanding the needs of your community. And we'll ask for volunteers to share out. And if you already have something in mind, please share it with the group.
I think that in terms of this community needs assessment.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can you identify your name and organization?
Hi, Sakia Dorset. I love Bed-Stuy. Also president of Block Association. I think when it comes to community needs, the self-reflection is not what we need, but really asking the question to people. And that really is like an open discussion in a survey. And so when it comes to needs that we're trying to address, lack of services when it comes to sanitation, lack of community support when it comes to police, what community policing looks like, how to support our neighbors by getting the information to them, especially older neighbors of the community that may be taken advantage of. In terms of reaching members of the community, I think we have to assess, different needs. We have younger members that are a little bit better with digital, so we have to, reach out to them with digital means. But then we have older members that need the general, piece of paper in hand. So we also have to address that. So it's a lot of stuff to consider as you try to connect with the community. And I'm in Bedford-Stuyvesant, so, we have a lot of different generations and different layers that we have to approach. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much for sharing. Would anyone else from the group like to share out?
Hi, I'll share. My name is Tanya Cruz. I'm currently a community board member and a member of the Queens County Traffic Safety Board. So when it came down to what would deepen our understanding, we're grappling with this issue of ATVs and dirt bikes right about now. So what helps our information, what helps us to deepen is to get exactly where's the breakdown in the communication with the agencies, the OEMs. So we're trying to get them at the table and have a very vibrant conversation. And how do we currently reach the members of the community is through our community boards, participating in our public safety meetings, anywhere that we may have a precinct concern or a civic concern about these instruments being used on our roads. What I will say, the perspective of the actual youth using and engaging in this recreation is missing from our organizational data, as well as the conversation within the communities. So, how we attempted to reach these individuals of the communities is we actually did a camp where it was, working in conjunction with the city of New York, undercover cloak and daggers and stuff, where we actually allowed youth to engage these vehicles that are perceived as illegal, where it is just operating it illegally, and getting some feedback and education about how do we do this correctly, and how do we use this as an interruption in the current violence that's going on with the 18 and under. That's it.
Yeah, interesting. And thank you so much for serving on our community board and for sharing. It's actually really interesting how your community is sort of thinking through how to find a solution that I think most neighborhoods share. So one more group. If not, we will jump to the next section. But we have a comment from someone from the group. As an member of the AmeriCorps, we go into the community, engage with members of the community. We build relationships with CBOs who have access to members of the community as well. Excellent. Thank you so much. So some things to sort of think about when you're asking for input from the community. It's always important to ask for candid feedback. And again, you can ask candid feedback attending virtual events, in-person events, at community boards. But remember, some of this feedback might not be good, but it's also important. But you might have groups or people that just sort of praise the work you're doing. So making it clear that you are listening to their needs, understanding their challenges, but also thinking about how you can help connect them to other partners that might support their need and address their critical issues in their neighborhoods. But always Have a strong facilitator when you have these discussions. Find a neutral partner. Maybe someone in the community can help facilitate these conversations. So always important to have a neutral party in having these conversations. So what are some of the tools that you can use to assess the community needs? So a starting point for structuring discussion with community members and stakeholders, we ask groups to consider the following questions. Sort of what community needs are being met well, what isn't working, what are some of the available resources, what are some of these barriers that prevent these needs from being met, and are there other local resources that can help address these problems? Are there certain groups or populations that are not receiving sufficient support? If so, what is preventing them from receiving support they need? So we're going to jump into map community assets. So it's important to understand the needs and deficits in the community. In critical planning, it's also important to identify the strengths and assets that a community can harness to meet those needs, like having those trusted voices on the ground that can share, this is what our community needs, how can we get them? And as an organization, it's your role to sort of think through how you can connect them to those resources. So there are a few questions that organizations can sort of ask themselves when they're thinking about asset-based approach. Recognizing the community strengths and look to uncover potential resources and opportunities and make connections to identify their needs. And why it's so important? Well, community deepens its self-awareness and builds its own capacity to solve challenges. And how? Well, community organizations tap into existing neighborhood assets to meet the needs and expand their capacity. Again, that could be through recruiting volunteers. So we talk about, asset mapping. We talk about identify existing assets and resources in the community to facilitate potential connections and build organizational capacity to address the needs. So after completing both with input from colleagues at your organization, you should have some ideas for potential partners to make that initial pitch. So this will be available in the toolkit, but again, bring these resources back to your organization and do it with your colleagues. So here's one sample that organizations can use to define geographical boundaries in their neighborhood that you plan to serve and the focal issues of your organization's plans to address. Create a list of organizations and key individuals in the community that might help you achieve your mission. Think about who in your community. These could be resident volunteers, any institution. So think about what colleges, universities you can engage. Governmental, the city agency, sanitation, parks, any cultural centers, a museum, some sort of landmark that you might have in your community, and local associations. These could be mutual aid groups, block associations, even small businesses. And choose your priority assets from each column and list them below. And again, we encourage you to take this back to your organization to discuss with your colleagues. Write down potential partners and how partnerships would be mutually beneficial. What is your value add to X partner? And how can that X partner support your organizational needs? This results in a pitch for ideas for an introductory meeting. And why is the organization looking for? Again, what does your organization bring to this partnership? So right now I'm going to hand it off to my colleague, Danny, who's going to share a little bit more about our new website and how your organization can announce and sort of spotlight any opportunities.
Thank you, James. Hi, everyone. I'm Danny Alvarado. I'm the Digital Engagement Coordinator at NYC Service. And in addition to the Neighborhood Engagement Toolkit training series, we also have another training called the Online Volunteer Recruitment Training Series. This is heavily focused on our new website, It's bigger, it's more robust than our old website, which it replaces. It's the best website in the world. You should go register at nyc.gov/service if you have not registered already. What's amazing about this new website is that it comes with free volunteer management tools for organizations. So if you have not already, please register. It takes less than 5 minutes. And then register for our online volunteer recruitment training series using the link there, bit.ly. So bit.ly/2023 OVR. The training series has three sessions. The first session will be this Thursday, and that will focus on navigating the new platform, as well as how to post different volunteer opportunities. The next session will happen next Thursday, which focuses on how to utilize the new volunteer management tools. So that's how to confirm volunteers, how to mark attendance, and how to email them all through our new platform. And then the third and final session will be on February 9th, also a Thursday. And that focuses on how to manage or how to market your opportunities. So again, if you have not registered your organization, please go ahead and do so at nyc.gov/service. There's a link in the chat. And then make sure to register for our online volunteer recruitment training series using the bit.ly link. Thank you. Thanks, James.
Fantastic. Thank you, Danny. And can you remind the folks what time on Thursday?
Yes. So it's Thursday from 1 to 1:30. And then afterwards, we have 15 minutes allotted for questions and answers.
Fantastic. Are there any questions from the group about our new website? And by the way, I second Danny. It's probably the best website.
It's the best website. Go check it out. nyc.gov/service. I help make it, so you have to go check it out and register.
And Gina, I see you smiling. I see you actually typing into the website right now. Ready to register. I love it. All righty. Thank you so much, Danny.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, so now we're going to jump into self-assess and make a plan.
Ooh, James, sorry, could I interrupt you for a second? I think
Sure,
we had
of
a
course.
hand raised right before we got back in there. I think Harry Barbarian had his hand raised.
Thanks for seeing that. I appreciate it. I just had a quick question about the new website. I used to manage our kind of the page when it was the older portal. And I'm wondering if you previously had an account, if those were migrated over, if we have to reset that up.
I can answer that. I believe some of the active accounts were migrated over, but a good amount of them will have to be reactivated. That's a fairly straightforward process. If you'd like, feel free to shoot me a message and I can put you in contact with Danny, who can help you out with that.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked. Any other questions regarding our website before we jump into the next section? All righty, thank you.
Hi, I have a question.
Sure.
I actually put it in the chat. I was wondering if it's possible for individuals not associated with a particular organization to participate in this workshop series.
For residents that are not associated with a nonprofit, just
right,
or looking to start a nonprofit that's focused on it.
Well, I'm not necessarily looking to start a nonprofit. I'm a community resident.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and so you're looking to get information about that. Yeah, we encourage folks to sign up and attend, and maybe you can share that with folks that have an organization that sort of are looking for those tools. And again, we'll have this on our website for folks to reference back. But yes.
I do also want to add, I also want to add that we do also have a, on our website, we also have it where individuals can sign up to learn about other opportunities. So for nonprofit organizations, you can sign up to post about volunteer opportunities to help build your, your volunteer engagement. However, individuals, I can sign up, you can sign up, anyone can sign up and create their own personal profile if you want to become more civically engaged and learn about all types of volunteers opportunities available to you across the city. So that's just the FYI.
Thank you, Tiffany. Again, we always encourage folks to find opportunities to volunteer in their community or across the city. So thank you for that, Tiffany. Alrighty, so we're going to jump into self-assess and make a plan. So when we talk about making a plan, we think it's obviously very critical for organizations to understand their role, sort of thinking about how they're going to move forward, but also how do they increase organizational capacity? Again, that could be through recruiting volunteers to support your overall organization mission without adding headcount. And again, some of the tools that organizations look to is sort of reflection on your organization. What have you been doing well? How can you improve what you're currently doing? And sort of how are you serving your community? And always ask the how might we question planning. So when we talk about building internal support, we're thinking about community needs will likely mean that organizational changes will be made. And not everyone is comfortable when they hear the change word when it comes to organizations, but in order to create a smooth process, it's important to foster an environment of trust and transparency. So we shared some strategies to deal with resistance to change and create champions of change. So one is including employees in the process early, especially those in leadership. Gain and acknowledge feedback throughout the change process. And if there's any, understand the true nature of the resistance and effectively engage those concerns. Clearly articulate change to employees and explain why it's important and the positive outcomes of the change. Define clear roles and decision makers, and provide training when needed, and implement change in several strategies. So reflecting on organizational needs and assessments. So use these questions below to reflect on the state of your organization, the systems currently in place, and areas of both strength and opportunity. So think about what has your organization done well to address issues. What are some of your key strengths that you can lean on and build on? What hasn't worked, what has worked, and what have you learned? What are the community needs that are ill-equipped to meet those needs? And what are the gaps in your organization capacity? That could be, again, recruiting additional volunteers. Can you meet those needs through partnerships with other organizations or volunteers? So we're going to ask groups to take 5 minutes to reflect on your organization needs and assets. Consider the following. What has your organization done well to address community needs? What are some key organizational strengths that we can lean on and build on? Could we meet some of those needs through partnerships with other organizations or volunteers? We're going to take a few minutes for groups to sort of jot down sort of some of these responses to the questions. And again, we encourage you to use the chat box to respond to these questions, but we'll also ask organizations if they're comfortable to share out. So just take a few minutes to think about this. All right, we're going to give you 1 more minute, unless there is a group ready to share out right now.
James, we have a hand up. It's Harry.
All righty, Harry, what's your question?
Thanks. One thing I would say that my organization has done well during this time to address a community need is through our single stop program, we recently discovered that there were a lot of new New Yorkers, people seeking asylum in the neighborhoods that we represented. And so in collaboration with a bunch of other organizations, we held a series of community events to help families actually process paperwork and just get the help that they need. That's like the one example that comes to mind. Thanks for asking.
And question, so during that time, how did you engage residents or at least recruit residents to volunteer their time?
That's a great question. We relied actually on a Facebook group that another organization called Mixteca was a part of. They were closing down their local kind of clothing and food pantry. And so we linked up with a member there who kind of kicked out a note to a bunch of, parents and families in Brooklyn. So we used a lot of those kinds of connections to access like Facebook groups.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Anyone else from the group would like to share? And Henry, I can't see everyone's hand, so. Oh, there is a hand raised.
There's one more. There you go, Sam.
Sam.
Yeah, so recently we've kind of like made a commitment at Care New York to make our volunteering more accessible and inclusive. So we like turned to like the Arc of New York, Arc of New York State, and then they put us in touch with the national branch, the ARC, and they were able to kind of put us in touch with their head of national inclusive volunteering. She was incredibly like helpful and kind. So I think it just speaks to that point of, turning to support for partners in areas where like you might not be best equipped really can be like a powerful thing to do.
Excellent, thank you. And Harry, I want to go back to your organization. How did you engage residents, non-English speaking volunteers to support those efforts?
It's a great question as well. We ended up recruiting and putting out a word to a network of volunteers that we have through our mentoring program, because they often are more, I think the word is like multilingual or polylingual, whatever it is. So we ended up reaching out to other programs within the organization that work directly with volunteers, and the mentoring was kind of at the top of the list because those are longer serving partners. And then we at the time did not post anything through NYC service, but what just comes to mind right now is New York City does such a good job of translating things into different languages. And so I feel like in the future, because we're going to continue to have these events like every month now, that's probably the first project I would put out there. It's almost like you've read my mind. So I appreciate that question.
Yeah, and I think that's a challenge for a lot of organizations, especially who are working to support asylum seekers. So let's connect offline and we can talk about how we can support you and any organization that's having the same challenge. And
James, I think next we had Kim Anderson from Noble, and then Gina Russell Stevens.
Sure.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm hoping you guys can hear me clearly.
Yes, we can.
All right. Hi, how is everyone doing today? My name is Kim Anderson, and I'm from Noble, New York, the National Organization for Black Law Enforcement Executives. As the associate member rep there, one of the things we recently did actually was on Saturday, the 21st of this month, we had a homeless initiative. We decided to target the homeless issue that is taking place in the borough of Jamaica, Queens. And one of the things we were able to do is to assist or obtain assistance from our partners. So we definitely reached out to partners, NYC, DSS, to get the homeless outreach teams out here. We also partnered with other community-based organizations that wanted to help with putting together, and businesses as well, that wanted to help with putting together homeless care packages in which we were able to distribute to the homeless that were in the subway station at Parsons and Archer in Jamaica, Queens. We were also able to connect the community or involve the community members that actually came out to help us, as well as on the Saturday. And we were able to provide clothes and food to those that were passing by that expressed that they were actually in need of the clothes and the food. So I think it's very important to really bring in our partners. I mean, because we can't necessarily do everything or meet all the needs of those that are in the community, So we have to be able to identify what we did in Noble, New York was we were able to use our partners to identify what is the need in that specific area of New York City, and how can we help. That's how we started off, with identifying the needs and then incorporating everyone's help to make it a very successful event. We actually connected with over 85, 86 people within the community that shared their needs. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you so much for sharing and for the incredible work that you guys are doing on the ground. And again, today's session is an opportunity for all of you to maybe share your information and think about how you can partner in your community to address similar issues. Again, your organization might be doing one thing, but needs support in another area where they have the skill set. So something to think about. And again, the questions that are on here, this is just sort of a starting point. You can build on these questions, think through with your colleagues on some of the sort of what needs you bring to the table and how you can consider supporting residents in your community. But I think one last question. Okay, so Harry, I'm gonna.
And I think, sorry, James. I was going to say, I think Gina Russell Stevens as well. Yep.
Great. I'm sorry, Gina.
Good afternoon. I'm Gina Russell Stevens from East Kings County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority. We are an international sorority with a plethora of programs from economic development, educational development, political awareness and involvement, physical and mental health, scholarships, arts and letters, you name it. But we service East Kings County, which is Brownsville, East New York, Bushwick. And we have to match our small volunteer force of 80 women who mostly work full time with the needs in our very needy community. Things that have worked well for us are partnerships. We partnered during the census with organizations and were able to increase the participation of folks answering the census. We do a Street Smarts seminar every year with youth to teach them how to survive an interaction with police officers. And we partner with a number of organizations for that. Additionally, we partner with a high wealth group to provide book bags for girls in our service area at the beginning of the year. And, we're in the process of action planning for a national strategic plan. And we're challenged with making a larger impact. So we want to find more partnerships within our service area so we can have a greater impact with our, limited resources. We have hands, but we have limited resources.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing it. Again, this is an opportunity for some of you to find those partners in your geographical area to partner for future events. So thank you for the work you're doing, and thank you for that event. I'm sure it was much appreciated in your community. Again, we encourage you to take these questions back to your organization and discuss with your colleagues. So we're going to jump into the next section, which is envisioning the path forward. So as you rethink how your organization can best serve the community, consider what you may need to change, build, or grow to deliver your mission. A clear vision will focus your efforts and can guide you to be successful. So one tool for visioning for serving the community. So in conjunction with reflecting questions in this presented section, the visioning activity offers a quick temperature check on what you may want to evolve at your organization. The group exercise can help surface some initial thoughts to help guide discussions about your organization vision. So on this slide, we're asking organizations to sort of consider 10 words, 10 honest words to describe your organization's current approach to address community needs. And this is a conversation you can have with your colleagues, with stakeholders, residents in the community, to think about, all right, what are we doing well? What are some of the common things you're finding in your community? And from 1 year from now, we're going to ask you to write down 10 words you would like stakeholders to use to describe your organization's approach to serving their community. So think about this from different perspectives: funders, beneficiaries, staff, volunteers. Again, be honest in your choice of words, both good and struggles. Give examples like passionate, slow. Reflect on your list to try and grasp what you need to know and how to evolve. So in this step, again, come together and share your words from the first column and write down the common themes and outliers. And share your words from the second column and note the common themes that you're hearing from colleagues and the outliers. Compare notes to see if you align in organizational strengths and gaps, and how you would like your organization to evolve in 1 year. So in step 3, there are different perspectives to help paint a more accurate picture of how stakeholders perceive your organization, which can guide your plan to evolve. Reflect on the results and discuss as a group. 3 things. What are the key differences you see between the current state and desired future state? Are there clear indications of where to focus your work to achieve your desired future state? And what are some of the words or ideas that show up as outliers? So again, sort of thinking about your vision, your current state, thinking about your own knowledge and experience. And 1 year from now, write down the 10 words you'd like the same range of stakeholders to use to describe your organization. Now we're going to jump into plan to increase organizational capacity. So before jumping into action, we ask organizations to pause, create a plan, and prepare your organization to evolve. Then we're going to jump into sort of a plan and ideate with the how might we question. Use how might we questions to guide ideation and brainstorming towards action. Rather than simply ask how an issue can be resolved, you will create more opportunities for solutions if you frame the questions more openly. The how might we question format encourages you to expand your thinking to generate more ideas and actionable next steps. So when crafting a how might we question, we ask organizations that questions should not be too narrow. Come up with solutions, but broad enough to encourage people to ideate freely. So an example of too broad might be, how might we get volunteers to return? Too narrow, how might we provide food for volunteers at project sites so they'll be encouraged to participate again? But one example of how a question might be framed just right is, how might we create a welcoming environment that will encourage volunteers to return? Or how might we build incentives for volunteers? Again, when you craft your question, that's narrow enough to come up with solutions, but broad enough to encourage people to identify freely. So in 3 steps, we want organizations to reflect with their colleagues on what you've learned about your community needs and assets, as well as the themes that emerge from the visioning activity. So 2, consider specific challenges and opportunities you might want to address and frame some how might we questions. Finally, step 3, for each question, brainstorm potential solutions that your organization could explore. Discuss which ideas seem most impactful and which are more feasible. So when we talk about plan and ideate with the how might we, here's one sample that you can take back to your colleagues to discuss the how might we and potential ideas and solutions. Again, these are examples. You can build out on what we have listed here, sort of how might we better leverage our strengths to increase our community impact? And how might we fill some of those gaps in community and organization have identified to fulfill our mission? Again, take this back, share with your colleagues to come up with ideas and solutions. So we're going to jump into a fun breakout activity, the how might we activity. So we're going to ask individuals to take a few minutes, review your notes from the earlier reflection activities, on community and organizational needs and asset vision. Pick one theme or challenge you think your organization needs to work on and create a how might we question. So brainstorm 2 to 3 responses, ideas, solutions to your how might we question. And in your group, share your name, organization, and how might you question, and one of your ideas and responses. Get your group feedback and how we might sharpen your how might we question to elicit the most effective responses. And have the group do a 1-minute brainstorm and share any ideas, solutions, responses to how might we. Again, we are going to have our breakout session for about 10 minutes. And then when we regroup, we'll ask groups to share out. So right now we're going to do.
I'm going to create the breakout rooms with about 5 or 6 people in each room. And then we'll bring everyone back after about 10 to 15 minutes. That sound good, James?
Sounds great. Does anyone have any question before we jump in? All righty. So Henry, let's place people in breakout sessions.
Okay, all rooms should be open now.
Henry?
Yep.
Okay.
The rooms are open. Yeah. People, I believe, should be joining them.
Okay. Yeah, they're all in there.
This is Lisa, the interpreter speaking.
Hi, Lisa.
If you know of the person who requested ASL, do you know what room they're in?
Good question. I don't have the name of that person. Henry, did we ever hear back?
No, I believe Javon could not find. Unfortunately.
Well, hopefully that person will put something in the chat if they need interpreting.
Henry, let's connect after today's call to talk about tonight's. Session's going well.
Hey, James, could you repeat the question one more time so I can bring back to that group?
So there are a few questions here. So is this Al?
Yes.
Okay, Al. So let's go back to the questions. Okay. So groups are being asked to sort of create a how might we question in terms of like engaging their community to think through solutions to addressing community needs.
Got it.
Henry, do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, essentially just creating like a how might we question for their organization, sharing like what they think a potential response might be, and then seeking out feedback from the other people in that room.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Al.
No problem. Thanks.
I can't see everyone's screen. I'm looking at some of these comments. Oh, did you pause recording? Excellent.
We needed more time.
Oh no, well, okay, sorry about that, but welcome back everyone. I hope you all had a fruitful discussion with your group. We're going to ask group leads if someone wants to share out from the discussion. We'll have about 10 minutes or so for groups to share. So who would like to go first? I know it's a shy group. I'm looking at the names and who can I call on? But Hillary, you were about to say something.
No, I was going to say at the end of our group, Miss Amadi made a great summary of our session. So if she wanted to represent our group.
Her hand is actually raised right now if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, so in our group, we actually realized that even though we had different aspects of what our how might we question was, we all basically had the same issue, which is getting the volunteers and keeping them engaged in what it was that we wanted them to do by using incentives. And also we came up with a solution of basically collaborating together. That would be the best solution for all of us, having the same issue, different areas of the same topic, which is sustaining volunteers and keeping volunteers within our different organizations. And we are vast organizations, but we all have the same issue.
Thank you for sharing. And that is a real struggle for many organizations. Volunteers have volunteer fatigue. During the pandemic, many organizations recruited residents who were looking to support their communities during that time. But if there's an organization on this call that has sort of come up with a best practice on how to retain, recruit their volunteers, and recognize their volunteers, would you like to share with the group on sort of best practice and solutions that you found that work for your organization? All right, we can get, yes.
We have a hand raised, Jody.
Okay. Okay, I know I said in the break I wouldn't talk, but I'll jump in. When I ran the NYC compost project at the New York Botanical Garden, which was funded by the Department of Sanitation, I had the highest retention rate for master composters. We trained 15 a year, and in any 10-year period, 65% of those people we trained were still volunteering with us. And so a part of it, I used to ask them, why do you come back? So the first thing is they said it was fun and informative for them, and that I didn't treat them like worker bees, to just help me get the job done, that I was making sure that they were doing something that was felt meaningful to them, and that they were contributing to my organization to help me go somewhere I couldn't go without them. So now I have left that job, I've retired, and just the other day, I had 8 of them out with me in my park because they still want to volunteer with me, because I'm still trying to give them things that are fun and informative and are meaningful, that they feel they're making a difference. So, it's just keep that in mind. And people's schedules are crazy. I think that's something that we do with volunteers, is we want them to make big commitments. But I have a volunteer who's been out for a year and came back, and I treated her like she'd been there every day, and she keeps coming back now. So those are some of the things that have worked for me. I can't get rid of my volunteers. They follow me everywhere now. So those are some tips. I hope they're helpful. Since you're going to share emails, if you're in the Bronx, that's where I am. I'm happy to give you some tips to make the Bronx better.
Excellent, thank you. You are a star volunteer recruiter. All right, anyone else from the group would like to share?
Next up, we have Dr.
Yeah.
Safani Lamore, and then after that, Alba Cruz.
Great, thank you.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. We actually have an all year round internship program and volunteer program. And to piggyback on what the person who spoke before me said, we include all of these, but we also connect interests with experience and talent, and among some other things, to make their volunteerism and internship meaningful. We actually have on our YouTube page some testimonies of how they share how the volunteerism and internship program is connecting with their life's goal and career path. So it's all about how you make the connection and the appreciation, because we do have some of them who do come back. They come back for many different reasons to help further their life path and career. So I welcome anyone, who may need some assistance, who might want to contact me. In fact, we're getting ready to put a literature together on how to best engage and have a successful internship and volunteerism program.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing. And there was another person.
Hi, I'm Alba Cruz from Open House, New York. One way that we maintain engagement with volunteers is we send out surveys at the beginning of the year asking what area they are more interested in volunteering, as well as our weekend volunteer, which is our weekend means we have a festival for the weekend where we open sites that are normally not open to the public, that are of cultural, historical, or architectural interest to New York City. And a lot of the volunteers join for that. And one way that we have retained volunteers is by actually throwing them a party at the end of the year, recognizing their efforts. We give out pins, we give out certificates, we give them a toast and thank them for joining us. And that seems to create not just, appreciation for what they do, but also they want to bring their friends with them and volunteer with them, which is also something that we give that opportunity for volunteers to bring and work together if they choose to. So that has maintained a lot of the volunteers that we have, which is right now closer to 7,000. But again, we actually just celebrated our volunteer engagement, and we have a 20-year volunteer this year. So it was very exciting. So yes, definitely appreciation, give out pins, give out certificates if you can. But they just want to feel included and, work in a way that they mainly want to do it, which is, again, ask them what their interests are. So
Definitely. And recognition is key in retaining your volunteers. I know from my experience volunteering, when I'm recognized at the end of the year or during a special event, it sort of encourages me and inspires me to continue going back to serve. So definitely something to keep in mind when you're thinking about how to retain volunteers to support your mission. Thank you. Anyone else from the group want to share a discussion or brainstorming activity they came back with?
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. When we had our talk, me and the ladies basically said that initiatives always helps brings back a volunteer. When you can give them something, they feel included. Myself, I last year I worked with Sanitation Foundation, and the initiative they gave us was Yankee tickets. And people showed up. And I'm sure they're gonna show up this year. But my own personal experience is something that you guys talked about but really didn't narrow on. When you give back to the community, that feeling I mean, all my volunteers, they come back, how would I say, with this natural high that they've served their community and helped people. And they go, you got to let me know next year when you're going to do this again. Oh, and P.S., my name is Greg Ingram. I'm from East New York. Thank you.
Greg, thank you so much for sharing and for attending today's session. We have time to hear from one more group. Do we have any hands raised, Henry?
Right now, no, we don't.
Alrighty, so I will take that as a no. We'll just jump into our last discussion. Alrighty, so from today's session, we encourage all groups to sort of take action on the ideas you've generated from today. You'll likely need to increase your organizational capacity in some way. Again, recruiting volunteers, developing partnerships with key stakeholders, but some key ways to build organizations' ability to increase impact. Again, partnerships, volunteers, and other avenues. Strategic partners bring new experience, resources, and capabilities to increase your community impact. Volunteers, community, corporate volunteers, university and colleges offer a relatively low-cost way to bring new skills to your organization without adding headcount. And finally, other avenues. Strategic board seats, external perspectives of advisors, subject matter experts, and other well-chosen sources of input can build and broaden organizational capacity. And with that, we are happy to answer any questions you might have. Again, we encourage you to use the chat box to share any questions. If we're unable to respond to any of your questions, we will make sure to respond after today's presentation. So we have time for a couple of questions or feedback on what you've learned from today. Thoughts, feedback, questions?
Hi, this is Shalina Lewis, the SAGE coordinator from Pride Center of Staten Island. I'm just, first of all, thanks for this series. In my new position, it really helps to network, and that's what I'm hoping to use this as. Staten Island we're kind of like I mentioned with Ms. Alba, we're kind of like the forgotten borough, but hopefully through these types of workshops and initiatives, we can build upon bringing Staten Island more into the 21st century as far as just honoring and cultivating the partnerships and communities that we have here, because they're all spread about, but they're all significant and they all have a purpose. And we just need more help networking with the other boroughs in order to bring those things out. So I just want to say thanks for that.
And thank you for attending, and we look forward to supporting your efforts on Staten Island and any organization. Regardless of any borough or neighborhood, we will definitely be there to support your efforts. Anyone else from the group like to share thoughts, feedback from today's session? Going once.
I just think that the whole program overall, thank you for taking the time to have it. It just came at the right time. And you had me thinking about what we might do better. I'm about to go into a couple of interviews with people from different departments and ask them some questions about their departments as kind of like a collaboration. So this is right on time. How might we do well? How might we do well? Question is a good one. And I definitely would ask that question because I already have my own thoughts. So I really thank you. It came right on time.
Excellent, thank you. And once you have that conversation with your colleagues, I encourage you to share back with me and Henry sort of how that discussion went. And again, how we can continue supporting your organization.
Will do.
James, I think we have one person with their hand up, Astoria Values Community Center.
Sure.
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for doing this. Appreciate it. I'm curious about the food donation program that you guys have. There's like a website similar to the the volunteer program website thing. Is there any way to confirm that, we're still like connected to that? Because we haven't gotten anything in a while and it seems kind of odd. I'm just wondering, and we accidentally got, like, something happened with one of the other like websites as well. So how do you contact those people is I guess my question.
Are you referring to Get Food NYC program?
Yes.
I don't have an answer for you right now, but let's connect offline.
Okay, thank you so much, and thank you for hosting this. You have a great day.
Of course, great question, by the way.
Thanks.
All right, do we
I
have
just
any-
put James
Go
and
on.
I's contact information up on the screen, but yes, if there are any other questions, please feel free to ask them now.
And again, if a question comes to mind after today's session, please feel free to reach out to us. We will definitely be here to support your efforts moving forward.
Lastly, I would add, if everyone would like to, please feel free to sign up for session 2 and 3 of this series. We look forward to continuing these trainings and to continue learning more about all of your organizations. There's also one other person with their hand up, Kanisha.
Yes, I wanted to know, I'm not sure if this was already answered or not, but I had asked it in the group chat and then we went straight into the breakout sessions. Are you guys sending us like a copy of the recording, or are you guys going to send us a copy, well, I guess like a roster of the different organizations so that we can keep in contact with them? I'm not sure if you answered this already or not.
Yes, great question. We will post the recording on our website very soon, but in terms of sharing contact lists, Henry and I are going to discuss that after today's presentation.
Okay, you said you're going to discuss that after today's presentation?
Yes.
Okay, great.
But I encourage all of you to include your information in the chat box. All right, if we have no other questions, I want to thank you so much for attending today's session. As Henry mentioned, next Tuesday will be session 2 of the Neighborhood Engagement Toolkit. And on February 7th will be the 3rd and final session. And with that, thank you again. Have a wonderful week and look forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.